Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire. Hey, what's going on, guys? Nick Unsworth here, and I've got a unique episode of Life on Fire TV here today. So this is awesome. I get an email from a mentor, a guy named Joe Polish, and it was very simple. It was basically like this: dude, you and Jake have to connect, and you got to hear what this guy's got going on. And that's how we got introduced. So I'm very fired up for today. We've got Jake Ducey here today, and he is a millennial that is just lighting things up and lighting them on fire. And I'm gonna just dive right in. So what's going on, my brother?
Hey, it's great to be here. Yeah, that's a cool way to get introduced for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, he's one of the greats. I mean, he's literally like one of the most incredible networkers in the world in the entrepreneur space. And so when he makes an intro, it's like, all right, there's something here. We got to see what's going on. And I always like to start these off and just kind of hear about what you've got going on. Like, what is this journey that you're on? And just take us back to what you're doing and how did this all start?
Yeah, thanks, man. Really, it's just about especially inspiring young people, but people of all ages, to really ditch that traditional playbook on life and success. Gallup did a recent poll that was really featured by Fortune and by Forbes, and 76 of the reported people came back to saying they're actively disengaged from their work, and over a quarter of people came back and said they hated their work. And we saw our parents growing up, a lot of them are divorced, a lot of them are not making the money that they should be making. They went down this whole route, and it's really just about inspiring young people to, really create that life that they want and make a difference doing it. And I'm 23, and it all began as a 19-year-old disenfranchised college student playing basketball, and I just started asking questions.
And so, what was it that that inspired this in you? This movement, and what I love is, we're speaking the same language, man. A life on fire is about doing what you love, and so, was there a point at which that you just took that stand, or something that happened that disenfranchised you, where you're just you wanted to figure this out?
Yeah, what happened is I was playing ball at school, and I was studying business because everyone said you're supposed to study business. Yeah. And I asked one day in my econ class as a freshman, as a 19-year-old, I said, excuse me, I was just wondering to my professor why we can't audit the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is as federal as FedEx. And I'm like, this is, we're getting this degree, but we're walking into an economy that's in this incredible debt. We have no solutions for this. And I'm just curious, about these questions. He basically told me to shut up. And that was when I realized it wasn't conducive for my learning. I found Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, another book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I thought they were stupid. And I finally read them. And when I read them, I was like, these guys are telling the truth, and you can really create your life if you really are persistent and you're clear about what you want and you're focused on making a difference. I've got to try it. And I dropped out as a 19-year-old when I really found out there's a difference between learning it and living it. For me, learning it was I had a Word document with hundreds of pages of quotes that I memorized, but I was not living an inspired life. And living it was really taking that risk. I backpacked around the world, just no map, just vagabonding it basically on my own self-discovery journey.
And so tell us about that. So here you've had this moment where you were, you drew the line in the sand, and you started basically, it sounds like, learning and educating yourself and figuring out what was going to work. And when you were backpacking, give us a couple, what was that adventure like? Take us to a couple places. Give us the craziest thing that happened to you on that trip.
Cool.
Something that was just nuts.
Well, a lot of things happened. I did end up, putting a book together, and really the craziest thing that happened, actually two. So, we read a lot of times, I read a lot of times in books about happiness doesn't come from things. But then when I went to third world countries in Central America and Asia, and I saw these kids that didn't have 25 cents, but they were just like literally thrilled to be alive, and they always made eye contact, they always smiled. That's when I was really like, there's a living experience of that. So it's things like that. But then I ended up losing my wallet in Indonesia, and all I had was my passport, and I met these locals who took me in. I went into projects with them, these concrete shacks where they live. One room where a family of 5 sleeps on this little floor. And they wanted to take me to their favorite waterfall one day. And we were climbing in the rain, and just like, just so if anyone's listening that hasn't traveled, in Indonesia, they do not have paved trails. When you go hiking, you climb up rocks in the middle of nowhere, and it's pouring rain, and we made it up. It was so incredible. We're coming back down, and it was pouring rain. We're climbing down boulders. We're, way up in this mountain in the middle of nowhere, and I slipped and I fell. Ooh. And I fell off the moss, and I fell about 10 feet. And we were basically climbing down boulders, and down the side was these like kind of big ravines where the water from the waterfall went down the mountain. And I fell into one of them. I covered my head up, and I could see like my life kind of flashing before my eyes. And I was like, if I get hurt, I'm okay with that, because I actually was like doing what I wanted to do. Like, boom, I hit the ground, and like this voice said, like, you're okay. And after like a minute or so, I realized like, okay, nothing's broken. I'm bleeding out of my arm, my leg, but like, okay, I can move my body parts. And when I opened my eyes, I rolled over, and one of these guys that I didn't even know really jumped off after me. And like, he could have hit his head, we're 10 feet down in pouring rain, just rocks covered in moss. And I started crying on the spot, because it was the most incredible thing, I say, besides my mom birthing me, that anyone's ever done for me. And that was so incredible. They ended up being able to pull me out after like 30 minutes. And that night I realized like I was traveling around the world. The joke was on me, but what I was looking for was actually inside of myself.
That's crazy, dude. And you know what's wild is I've had a near-death experience, and I find a lot of entrepreneurs, it takes sometimes a rattling of the cage like that, where something happens to realize that there's more to life than, working at a job you don't like or all these things. And I think of Adam Braun from Pencils of Promise. He was traveling around the world and on a cruise ship. I mean, he almost lost his life in a huge, massive, like tsunami-style wave, and it makes you think. And I'm just curious, what would your advice be for someone that maybe hasn't had a near-death experience, or someone that is considering being an entrepreneur, going off on their own, and how would you look at giving them advice about doing something that they just like, going for their dreams, or going for their purpose or passion? What would you say to them?
Yeah, well, I think for me, like, I found there's kind of like 2 types of where we're at. One is like, we know really what our dream is, and like, it's really, I think, just like a matter of realizing that the fears, it's not about being fearless. I believe it's about just being courageous. Like, all the people that I've met that have done incredible things are always scared out of their mind, and I think recognizing that is like really important. And I think the other thing, like, when we don't know what we want, I think it's really cool to just find the ways. One, taking small steps, experimenting. We're always in boxes. But 2, I think like finding out what ways that we can like contribute to others that makes us feel like ourselves. Like, I think a really important question to ask is, what makes you feel like yourself? Because we're in a world that's constantly trying to make us anything else. And I think that's like a really cool place to come from. And I learned that from like a 7-year-old kid in a workshop I ran. I was asking people, what would have to happen 1 year from now for you to look back and say it was your most successful and fulfilling year yet? Which I think is an awesome question, because we can, shape our goals. And this kid's like, can I raise my hand? I want to change it to what makes me feel like myself. I want to write books, because everyone tries to make me something else and tell me what I should do when I grow up. And writing books will make me feel like myself. And I think those are cool places to really start from, in my opinion.
I love it. That's huge. I mean, it's taken that action to just go towards it. And I love what you said about fear, or, having the courage to go towards it, because like you, I mean, it studied the books and realized that we're all going to have to step into it. You know what I mean? And why wait? And why wait for some end time to do it when we're 50? You know what I mean? And to do it now. So, but what else as far as the trip goes? What was out of all the trip? I mean, your either proudest moment or something that was just so much fun, you got so much enjoyment out of the trip.
Besides all the time, I didn't do like any tourist stuff, and I felt proud of that because, like, a lot of third world locals from other countries have total stereotypes about Americans, and I felt proud to be able to break that by all I did is sit on the curbs with them and like eat the 50-cent food. But I was going to travel for like 2 years till I fell. Mm-hmm. And I was like, maybe I'll never come back, And after that happened, I realized, that for me, it's about finding my gift and sharing it with the world. So I decided to cancel the rest of my travels and end with 14 days silent meditation, which is probably the biggest accomplishment that I've ever done. Crazy. It's 12 hours a day. And that was like really wild because I'm not, I didn't grow up spiritual. I didn't grow up religious. I had, dabbled here and there in breath work and meditation, but it was really a mirror on myself for sure.
Yeah. So, and I've heard about people doing that, and how would you describe that experience, or how did that experience change your outlook, or just change
the way
you
it
as a
really
person?
Changed it was I was able to see like how not real our thoughts are, because like in my head I'm like, I think I'm gonna die now. I think I'm gonna die, because like you're sitting in a white room by yourself meditating all day, and like I think like I'm pretty sure I'm about to die now. Like I'm gonna go crazy now, like because we're just sitting by ourselves, talking to anyone, only able to see the thoughts we're having and the feelings we have, or the regrets, or the gratitude we have. And I started, when I was able to really not take my thoughts as seriously, I was able to tap into a deeper level of myself and a deeper level of my potential. And that translates into being an entrepreneur. And eventually when I came back and wrote my book as a 19-year-old, that translates in, because we always have those thoughts that say, you're not good enough, don't try this. That's going to kill you if you ask for what you want. And I was able to see like, they're really not that real.
Yeah. So sweet, man. So you did, and was it 14 days? 14 days straight. Days. That is crazy, and it's I mean, I love what you brought up about the thoughts, because we're always constantly limiting ourselves with what we think in our heads, and so did you go from that experience to then writing the book, or was that? So tell us about how that process, or that journey on that side.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think we find like a lot of some of the most successful entrepreneurs had that time alone where you can like really cultivate your vision without the opinions of other people or even the busyness of the world affecting it. Like we know, like Steve Jobs went to India when he was like 20 or something like that before he came back, and maybe even before he came back. And I tried to use it in the same way of like trying to really harness my vision for my life. And that's when I was like, got the sign, like, you should write a book. And the problem was I failed my junior English class in high school. I had no experience in writing. I cheated on every single English essay in college. Like I was awful at writing. And like, it was clear to me that you can learn any skill or overcome any sign of weakness that you think you have if you have the right intention. That the passion can be felt, the purpose can be felt beyond anything. And that like writing or creating a business, like it's less about the credentials and more about how real you are. And I tried to really take that to heart. I taught myself to write by retyping The Great Gatsby and wrote this book. No one would publish it. They said, you're 19, you don't even have a Facebook fan page. Like, who are you? And I had to like tuck my tail between my legs, self-published the book. We sold 15,000 copies in 12 months in an industry where most books don't sell 250 copies. Made the top 300 on all Amazon out of like 25 million books. And Penguin picked me up, and Jack Canfield started mentoring me, and now I have a new book out with Penguin. So it's like it's been pretty nuts for sure.
Dude, I mean, you took all the you took all of what everyone around you said, and you basically proved them all wrong in fashion, and getting picked up by, I mean, those are huge accomplishments. And so tell us about the book. Dive down and tell us about what the book's about and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, the new book, the first book was Into the Wind, and that was really about my story of taking the risk. And as a freshman in college, though, I was always curious, like, what are the common threads between some of the biggest influencers in the world and the biggest difference makers, and where did they start from? Like, what are their failures and like these things that we don't know? We see all these familiar faces. This person is awesome, but like they probably didn't just like come out of their mom's womb like that. And so the Purpose Principles, which is my new book with Penguin, was an opportunity for me to explore that question. Jack Canfield wrote the foreword, and that's a crazy full circle because 4 years ago, like I was saying, I was reading his book. And then he wrote the foreword to my book. And so I highlight a lot of really unfamiliar stories and break it down into 15 principles, from having a vision to asking what you want. I share stories from like really unknown stories. That was really my goal, because I want the reader, like, you will see yourself in the biggest successes and difference makers in the world, because you will see that like they started from nothing. Like Taylor Swift was no one. She wanted to be a big country star, and she had a little mixtape, and she called Tim McGraw's office every single day for like 30 days and said, I want to come on tour. I want to come on your tour. And he's like, who are you? I don't even have an opening act. Like, leave me alone. And he finally like listened to her mixtape and brought her on tour. Like, so asking for what you want is like, that's how the book is written. I share stories like that. And I read Jack's Success Principles and Think and Grow Rich and these other books that share contemporary success stories. And most people, I think, under 40 aren't really interested in hearing about a bunch of dead people like W. Clement Stone. And although they have incredible stories, it's not relatable. So I share everyone from Jay-Z to Laird Hamilton, who invented tow and surfing, to Bob Marley, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, Oprah, all types of people that I think our generation, Brad Pitt, that our generation can really relate to.
Dude, that is so cool, and it's interesting because I mean I've read this similar books, and there is that relatability, and you're tapping into what people want and having the awareness of how come no one's doing that? Why are we all reading all these stories of people that aren't around? It's freaking smart, man. So tell us about the process. So what goes into you highlighting Brad Pitt's journey? Is it the research and getting how did all that come together?
Yeah, Brad was someone I couldn't interview. I did interview a lot of people. Brad was someone I couldn't. I'm personally just fascinated. Like, the media talks about every Brad Pitt, this, he did that, blah, blah, blah. But like, how did he get there? And that's about taking the risk. Brad grew up in Missouri. He was going to University of Missouri in journalism. His senior was set up to go work at a news station, and like everything was pretty much set up for him. He was going to be a journalist and stay out there in Missouri. But deep inside, Brad Pitt always wanted to act. And just before he was finishing his finals and was about to walk, he had a couple $100. I think it was 500, and he had an old beat up car. And he went and said, hey, Mom, I'm out of here. I'm going to Los Angeles to go act. And she's like, you don't have any money, blah, 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 blah. And by the time he got there, he almost had no money. The only thing he could afford was the 99-cent McDonald's hamburgers. And he took a job at a mascot for El Pollo Loco, and where he wore those suits. And he saved money to pay an acting coach, and that's how Brad Pitt started from literally from the bottom. And like, so I share that about taking risks and like seeing like literally this is what people are doing.
Dude, that's so awesome. It's like, I mean, those are the things, I mean, people see the output, but they don't see how they got there, and it's like, even in the podcasting world, people see, like people that are successful or making money as a podcaster, but don't see the journey to get there and the trials and tribulations and what it takes. I mean, and how hard you have to work to get to that spot. And we've got a lot of people that do interviews and reach out. And so I'm curious as far as the research side. So if you didn't get the interview, what's a technique that you use to kind of dig some of that up?
Oh man, lots of hours. Like I share Jay-Z's story and in the confidence section, and then I had another one about hard work. Like he couldn't get a record company, and so he printed his albums himself, sold them out of the back of his car. One person would go to his event, would go to his concert, and he hustled them out of his car. And I found those stories literally by. We have the biggest blessing ever, I believe, with the internet, and we don't need to go to a library and like, hey, do you have any books on Jay-Z? We just like, you can go around online and find out whomever you're interested in, and so I spent just countless hours like retyping in phrases like Brad Pitt's starting story. How did Brad Pitt create his success? Where was Jim Carrey 25 years ago? Like, how did Jay-Z become famous? How did Jay-Z make $500 million? And like, it's never going to be the first link. It's never going to be the first article, because like the first ones are always like, Jay-Z sets record for $500 million. Like, those are the first stories. It doesn't talk about their starting places. And so I just really did a lot of background research. So many entrepreneurs say it's great to read biographies of people that have achieved similar things. And so it was kind of, because I knew there wasn't going to be a biography on a lot of these people, it was really just taking a lot of time because it was my passion. And I think it goes back to what you're saying, like, I had my technique. My main technique was to work my ass off. And like the other one was playing with keywords on Google. Like, we can pretty much find the answer to most things through the internet. And I think what happens a lot of times, and what I try and like, people will ask me similar questions, but they stop after the first one or two searches they're looking for, whatever they're looking for online. And like really rephrasing keywords and stuff, I think, is how we can really dive in and find things, going to just spend a couple of hours finding out, what you're looking for, and you can usually find it, I believe.
I love it, man. And out of the story, so which one was the most exciting to create, or which one do you think that people are going to enjoy the most?
Man, I've got a lot of really cool ones, from some of the most successful surfers in the world to actors to humanitarians. I really like the Brad Pitt story, just because like it's so mainstream, and I think it'll be a good bridge for a lot of people. I really like there's this woman named Mosda Jamalzadeh. She's called the Oprah of Afghanistan. She's one of the most famous women in the history of Afghanistan. She's about our age. She's like 28 or 29. And she grew up in Afghanistan, and so she grew up to bombs being blown off. Until she was 5 years old, she thought that everyone around the world grew up with bombs around their house. And I've gotten the pleasure to get to know her. And her story is incredible, because she had to flee the country because it was so gnarly there. And so she came to Canada eventually after living in a refugee camp in Pakistan growing up. And she got into music, wrote a couple songs, they took off, and she started getting famous in the Western world through music. And she wanted to create her own TV show. had a little TV show called The Mosda Show in Canada. The major networks in Afghanistan heard about her, so they signed her to the top network in Afghanistan. She moved back, creates a show in Afghanistan, and they're trying to like make her almost into a puppet. Like these really people worth billions of dollars in Afghanistan are trying to corrupt her, taking her back to their palaces and trying to like basically get her on their side so they could rule the government. And she wouldn't have any of it. And they told her, like, here's your parameters on what you can talk about. But she would go on the air and she would talk about women's rights and taking the power back to the people. And like, they tried to kill her. And she was becoming the most influential person in all of Afghanistan. And so they tried to kill her. And then the Al-Qaeda came out with a fake video, and they put it out in the news stations and said that they decapitated her and they were going to hang all of her limbs up in the center of Kabul, and that no woman should ever do this again, or else you're going to end up like her. She was alive, so she's like, what the heck? Like, and the chief of police from Kabul are like, you need to get out of this country. Like, you're putting all of our lives in danger. And she went into hiding because she couldn't leave on the spot because they thought she was going to get killed. So she went into hiding, eventually fled the country, and was just felt so bad because she had this mission and she had to run away. And she was like, should I just give up on this? And her mom was like, you know, like, this life is temporary. Like, you're going to die eventually anyways. Like, you can't let somebody change your mission. You can't let somebody change your life. You can't let death scare you from doing what you came here to do. And she's moving to LA this year, and she's developing her TV show again, just went on a major tour, and she's going to do a Western version of it. And I was literally crying when I heard her story. And it's so incredible because, you know, it's like, how far are we really going to do to set ourselves free? Like, real freedom, I believe, is really not compromising our mission in the fear of death or the fear of failure on any scale, whether it's just failing and having to go back to our old job, or whether it's someone like Mosda who faced the fear of death. And I believe really being an entrepreneur is like the ability, not only the ability, but actually taking a vision within ourselves and changing the world with it, attempting to change the world with it. We're going to make, of course, a lot of money by doing that. But more importantly, I believe we have the opportunity to really influence the world. And I think that's a story no one will ever hear until they read this book. And I'm really excited about that. It's quite different than a lot of the other stories of more, you know, people in pop culture. But I think it's a really beautiful story.
It's incredible, and I mean I get goosebumps just hearing you share it. And I mean, it's because I feel like for all of us, we all have this purpose to be here. We all have this, you know, talents and gifts that we've been provided with, and it's just the awareness to realize that it's true that we all do have something. And you know, when you hear stories like that, you can't help but feel that emotion or feel goosebumps, and to really think that, man, you know, I don't have to go through that. I don't have Al-Qaeda, you know, on my six, you know, coming after me. Most of us, if you're hearing this episode, you're probably in a very fortunate position. You probably have an iPhone, or, you know, you've got an iPad or something, and you're listening to this. So, I mean, we've got a lot to be grateful for. And what I love is, I mean, this is a compilation of just incredible stories. And I think we're wired as just a culture and as a human to gravitate towards storytelling, you know, as opposed to being told what to do. And I'm excited, man. I'm fired up to dig into your work and to read this stuff, because that's what it's about, is staying inspired and staying fired up every single day, and to live out the true missions and callings and lives that we all have. And what I'd love for you to do is just to share with us, you know, give us the full blown, like, I mean, I'd love to really just open up, almost like opening up your cranium, man, and just looking in and saying, where do you see this going? And what is your true, you know, your movement that you've got, you know, just paint that picture of what you're building, you know, and what does this movement look like, and your true purpose that you feel called to do?
That's a loaded question. My 12-month goal is I want to sell 150,000 copies of this book. This is the type of book where you don't need to read the whole book. You can open up 1-2 page story and you can be like, I could have done that, and you just like put the book down and you go into action. And so I believe like the more copies that are out of it, the more copies that are out, the more opportunity. I think really what especially young people are in need of is recognizing their self-worth and their self-value. And we have a predatory marketing system that teaches us that we're not good enough and not capable enough. And so ultimately, like, I want as much people as possible to realize and see themselves in the same light as the world's biggest influencers and difference makers. I believe young people are primed for that because we haven't went through as much social conditioning as maybe someone in their 60s. We haven't went through as much, for lack of better terms, indoctrination into the traditional beliefs of our culture about not being good enough, or that we just can't do what we want to do. This isn't a utopia. And so 2015, I've got a really cool year. I'm going on the Warp Tour, which is 600,000 millennials, really taking the next step and getting into tons of colleges and high schools. And like, really my vision is like, and where I see this continuing to build is, I want there to be a merge between activism and entrepreneurship, where like we create our dreams, but we don't just create them just so we get the next number in our bank account, but we create them so we influence the next number of people. And I believe that ultimately this mission is about us taking the power back in our personal lives to create our dreams and the lives we want to live, but also taking our future back, because like our environment's being destroyed. There's war after war. Our economy's being destroyed. And like, we're not talking about these things that our generation, like, we're going to have to face these things. And I believe that we have all the technology, we have everything in order to like create a better world, like, for our kids. And I believe that this movement, I want to develop a TV show. I'm looking to, get that going by the end of 2015, hopefully after a great year. And like, just showing people that it's cool in order to not go out and black out drunk every night, 3 nights a week in college, and that it's actually cool to like stay home and learn about yourself, and it's cool to like have a dream, and like it's cool to work hard at that dream, and it's cool to rebel against like the traditional path of success of what we should do. That's really hopefully I answered your question, but that's really what it's about. There's half the world's population is 35 and under, and like, we're looking for things. I believe like the media is like, well, young people are disengaged. I think they're disengaged because we saw our parents get divorced and fight over money, and we saw our parents stress all the time, and we know that's not the answer, but there's not another answer. But actually there is another answer, and that's really to just like take our vision to the world and create our vision. And so I'm really about that, and inspiring young people, especially college students that are going to go leave and go work that did great in business school, to really instead maybe think about creating, a business that can really influence the world, and that they have the capability already to do it on their own. So that's really what it's about. Ultimately, I don't want people to look at Gandhi or Jay-Z or anyone in between and be like, well, that's them. Like, I can't become a great reggae musician. Like, Bob Marley's like, he was just special. I want them to say, like, he did that, I can do that. And that's what the book's about.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. And it's I can already I can't wait to dig into it, to tear into it. And tell us about when it comes out.
It comes out January 2nd. So I'm really excited about that. Just like, I think it's been 16 days. So, it's available for pre-order on Amazon now. And the audiobook, I'm really excited and grateful to I did the audiobook with Penguin Random House Audio, which was crazy because 4 years ago, I turned on my audiobooks and listened to A New Earth and Success Principles. And it's like, this is a Penguin Random House Audio project. And like, so it was crazy to be in the studio. So yeah, it comes out January 2nd. The purpose principles, how to draw more meaning in your life. Because I really believe when we know what we stand for and we're centered in our purpose, that's how we can really, that's how big business will shift, because they adhere to us. And like, if we're really centered in our values, I think that's when we can really create an awesome life and really help others do the same, create a more awesome world. So January 2nd.
I love it, man. I'm so fired up. I'm so fired up to dig into it. I'm so fired up for all of our listeners and folks viewing this content in this interview to dive into it too. I mean, this is what it's about, is really getting clear on what our purpose is and getting inspired by, all the hard work that you've done to put this, this book, this masterpiece together. So I'm excited for everybody. And is there a link that you'd like to share for that, or what's the best way for folks to grab that book and to get inspired?
Oh, thanks, man. Well, yeah, my website's jakeducey.com. My last name is D as in David, U-C-E-Y. And, though the best link, it'll be in all bookstores and stuff. But if you want to grab that off Amazon quick and easy, they cut the book price, which is always cool. And if you, just go to Amazon.com and type in the purpose principles or my name, Jake Ducey. That's always great. Shout out to Barnes & Noble, too. I know they sometimes their feelings get hurt when they're not as included as Amazon. Those links are great to grab it. I don't sell it on my site, but I do have the link on my site in order to grab it off another online retailer.
I love it, man. And guys, too, also, I mean, I just want to encourage you to not only grab it, but to write that review. Get into it, dig into it, tear that thing up. Whether you read, one of the journeys that you hear about that entrepreneur, that celebrity, or whether you read the whole thing, but to go in to just show some love to Jake. He's a guy. I mean, I think just by listening to this or watching this very interview, it's like you can just see. I mean, it'd be impossible to watch or listen to this right now without feeling like there's a dude that's just going after it. I mean, he's looking at life and saying, I'm just going to go tear this thing up. I'm going to go straight at my mission, go right after it. And it'd be impossible to not get inspired by that. And we've got to support each other, and grab the book, write that review on Amazon, show some love. And then the main point of course, Jake, this is your message is for you, on the other side, to get into action with what your purpose is and what you love to do. And that, with our message with Life on Fire, it's literally, an echo of what Jake is sharing here about, doing what you love for work every single day, inspiring the masses and giving back along the way. And being disruptive in the marketplace, so take a page out of Jake's book, literally, and get that freaking book, write that review, and let's support each other on the journey. And the last thing before we wrap up, just kind of a weird question, which is just, what's one thing that most people don't know about you? It could be just a weird random skill, something that happened, but just a random factoid that most people don't know about you.
I learned two things. First, my people look and they're like, whoa, you're 23 and you're published by Penguin Random House. My first book was self-published, and I had to sell them out of the trunk of my car and go door to door at people's houses in order to get the contract with Penguin. And two, I learned how to write through poetry, which isn't as marketable. So I turned it into a book instead.
Dude, awesome, man. Well, it's been great hanging with you here. And guys, again, grab the book and write that review on Amazon and show maybe a little bit of love to Barnes and Nobles. Maybe walk into one of those if you can find one, and grab the book there too. And guys, have a great rest of your day. Jake, awesome hanging, my man, and wish you all the success in the world. I can't wait to see this journey unfold before our eyes online. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Thanks.
I'm here to help you set your life on fire.